Ajata,
Ajaha,
Ajaha,
unborn.
Unborn.
Translation. O brāhmaṇas, do not think this to be especially wonderful in the activities of the mysterious and infallible personality of Godhead. By his own transcendental energy, he maintains and annihilates all material things, although he himself is unborn. Please repeat. O brāhmaṇas.
O brāhmaṇas,
Do not think this to be especially wonderful
do not think this to be especially wonderful
in the activities of the mysterious and the infallible
in the activities of the mysterious and infallible
personality of Godhead.
personality of Godhead.
By his own transcendental energy,
By his own transcendental energy,
he maintains and annihilates all material things,
he creates, maintains, and annihilates all material things,
although he himself is unborn.
although he himself is unborn.
Gaudacandra Prabhu, can you give me
Yes,
a
sir.
second to mute everybody?
You could keep and listen if you like.
All right.
Yeah. You have to go and Skype.
I muted everybody. Now I'm going to mute myself. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, purport by Srila Prabhupada. The activities of the Lord are always inconceivable to the tiny brain of the living entities. Nothing is impossible for the Supreme Lord, but all his actions are wonderful for us, and thus he is always beyond the range of our conceivable limits. The Lord is the all-powerful, all-perfect personality of Godhead. The Lord is 100% perfect, whereas others, namely Narayan, Brahma, Shiva, the demigods, and all their living beings, possess only different percentages of such perfection. No one is equal or greater than him. He is unrivaled. Jai Om Gyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshus Ulmilitamena Tasmaya Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitamena Bhutale Swayamupakadamayam Didanti Swapadantikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchakopa Tubhischa Kripasindhavyacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnuddhaya Krishna Sai Bhutale Shanti Jai Padaksantami Namo Jai Pudini Kumakatita Namo Vishnuddhaya Krishna Sai Bhutale Shanti Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharya Tarine. So the verse again. Namam stahiyetadascharyan sarvascharyan maye chute ya idamaya ya devya shudati avati hanti ajaha. O brāhmaṇas, do not think this to be especially wonderful in the activities of the mysterious and infallible personality of Godhead. By his own transcendental energy, he maintains and annihilates all material things, although he himself is unborn. So here we know what's been happening here is Krishna is performing some amazing feats, and that's being explained to the brāhmanas here. Sutta Goswami is explaining. He says, and by the way, I don't think this is so great, compared to what he actually is doing, or this is nothing compared to what the personality of Godhead is like. We can't understand. So it's like we're getting a view of the personality of Godhead and his wondrous activities. They're actually inconceivable to our tiny brains, as Prabhupada says here in the purport. And how we can't imagine how nothing is impossible for him, for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it's very wonderful. He's beyond the range of our conceivable limits. He's all perfect. He's the Supreme Personality of God. He's better than anyone. He's unrivaled. Can't imagine such a personality as Krishna. It's just amazing. This is his wonder that we were just reading about, how he protected the child, Parikshit, within the womb from the Brahmastra weapon. He just simply appeared there, and by his own personal energy, he was able to protect the child. So this is Krishna. Krishna is everywhere. He can do anything. He's everywhere. We can't conceive of that with our tiny brains. This reminds me of the story of the frog in the well. There's many versions of this story. There's even different cultures have different versions of this story. Even in the, I think it was in the Chinese or the Oriental tradition, they have a similar story about the frog within the well and how he's sitting there and he's thinking, oh, life is good. I'm here enjoying on my little rock here. I could completely lay down on there, and I can even float in the water. And when I jump up and down, I could splash. The water actually comes up to my armpits. And if I get hungry, I could just, stick on my tongue and swoop up one of these insects here. And, I got some moss growing on the side there. Could eat all kinds of different things. And look at my view. I get a piece of the sky. I could check it out. It's so wonderful. And then every once in a while, he would be visited by some birds, like a little sparrow. Some people say a turtle. Different living entities would come and say, hi. And he'd say, hey, why don't you come down and play with me? It's so pleasant down here. I have cool water to drink. There's countless insects here to eat. Come on down. And at night, you can even see the twinkling stars. And we might even be able to see the moon. So the little birds would say to the frog, this outside world is much bigger. It's actually nicer than your little well here. Actually, it's many times more beautiful than this little well at the bottom. But the little frog, he won't believe them. He said, don't lie to me. I don't believe you guys. What could be better than this place down here? So gradually all the insects they didn't like him, so they just kind of stopped visiting him. And so he couldn't understand why people stopped coming to see him until one time this little sparrow came down there and he told him the same story. And the sparrow didn't say anything, he just flew away. And he came back a few times. And then about the third time he came by and he said, the sparrow actually became very angry. And he actually flew down there. He put the frog on his back and he took him out of the well. And the frog came out and he couldn't hardly even open his eyes. It was so bright. The sun was amazing. And then when he finally opened his eyes, he could see many things around him. And he was screaming at the bird, hey, don't hit this, don't hit, what is that? What's this green high thing there? And the sparrow laughed. He said, those are mountains and valleys. And there's countless of these in this world. There's the Himalayas, there's the Swiss Alps, the Rockies, there's all these amazing mountains. He couldn't believe that there were so many things like this. And then they flew over these high mountains, and he was even more surprised. And he said, what's that long silvery thing there? And they said, oh, it's a river, the sparrow replied. And they said, that's huge. And then what's this huge blue thing over there? And he said, oh, that's the sea. And he said, wow, this is amazing. You do have so many things that are bigger than my mouth. It's like billions of times more water than my well. And then he began to realize that, oh, yeah, how tiny his conception was. And then the yellow sparrow, he let the frog down on the ground, and he actually let him loose, and he jumped on the grass. He saw many beautiful flowers he's never seen before. He smelled so many nice aromas. He went into the forest. He saw many huge trees. He found different kinds of fruits, and that fruits tasted so amazing. And then he heard the beautiful birds singing, the squirrels, monkeys, jumping, animals like antelopes and scampering here and there. And then he jumped on a lotus flower in a pond. And it was like, they were dancing in the air and floating in the water like umbrellas. And there was fish in the water. And he was wondering how beautiful, how wonderful this is. And he just cried happily. And then he just was so happy that he said, it is so beautiful, it's so wonderful, this world. Thank you so much for bringing me out of here. And he never tried to go back to his old well again. So this is the well, and Prabhupada talks about that, how, due to a poor fund of knowledge, mental speculators, they try to bring in the Supreme within their purview of their words and minds. But the Lord actually refuses to be so intelligible. Actually, we don't have adequate words or minds to actually gauge the infinity of the Supreme Lord. He's actually adhokshaja. He's a person that's beyond our perception of these blunt, limited machines of senses that we have. And we can't perceive the transcendental name or form of the Lord by mental speculation. So these mundane PhDs, they're completely unable to speculate, as Prabhupada calls them, the Dr. Frog philosophy, about what this world is like. So they're just puffed up. It just shows that they're puffed up, like a frog in the well, trying to understand what the gigantic Pacific Ocean is like. So as he began to puff himself up, this pride of the Dr. Frog, in order to measure or understand the length and breadth of the Pacific Ocean, he actually burst and died. And Prabhupada gives the meaning to the title PhD. It's also interpreted as plow department. It's a title meant for tillers in the paddy field. And the attempt of the tillers is to try to understand the cosmic manifestation, or the cause behind the wonderful work of Krishna. And that's compared to the endeavor of the frog in the well. So this is Prabhupada giving us the understanding, the real understanding of what it's like. So just like Arjuna, he was wanting to understand Krishna also. He wanted to please describe the detail, the mystic power of your opulences. I'm never satiated in hearing about you. For the more I hear about you, I just want to taste the nectar of your words. So here's Arjuna, who's very qualified. He's very humble, submissive. He's actually pure devotee of Krishna. And there's so much to know about Krishna, and he never gets tired. He never gets satiated hearing about Krishna. So Krishna, wonderful Krishna, he actually reveals himself to Arjuna. And because Arjuna is telling him, please tell me in detail of your divine opulences of which you pervade all these worlds. O Janardana, again, please describe in detail the mystic power of your opulences. I'm never satiated. So here, Krishna reveals to him all his manifestations in the material world that's described in the 10th canto. How we can see there's, the largest things that we can see, there's the elephant. Krishna represents the elephant, powerful personality. He represents the wielder of the bow, wielder of weapons, Ram, or the power of the thunderbolt. We could see Lord Indra here in the top left. That's who represents Krishna's power. Or the moon, or the most beautiful things, like the horse. He represents the great sages like Narada Muni. The bird, Garuda. This is Krishna revealing himself to Arjuna. And he says, yes, I'll tell you my splendorous manifestations, but only of those which are prominent, O Arjuna, for my opulence is limitless. So even Arjuna couldn't understand. And he goes on to describe all the different aspects, like, of great aquatic beings. I'm the shark. It's a very powerful enemy of the man as a shark that represents Krishna. Or the lion, how powerful the lion is. Or the snake, the many-hooded snake. So this is Krishna. He's manifesting himself in so many different ways. But these, as he says here, it's just a mere indication of his infinite opulence. And he tells Arjuna, know that all opulent, beautiful, and glorious creations spring from but a spark of my splendor. And what need is there, Arjuna, for all this detailed knowledge? With a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support this entire universe. Can you imagine that? So Arjuna was amazed, and he began to pray to Krishna, called him Purushottama, the Supreme Person. I just highlighted here in bold the different names so you don't have to read the whole thing. And then Bhuta Bhavana, he was here described as the father of all living entities. See, because some people, as Prabhupada said here, that may accept Krishna as Bhagavan, but yet, they may not know him as Purushottama. Or they may know him as Purushottama, but they may not know him as Bhuta Bhavana, the Father of all living entities. And they may know him as the Supreme Father, but they may not know him as the Supreme Controller, Bhutesha. And even if one knows the Supreme Controller of all living entities, he may not know that he is the origin of all the demigods. Therefore, he is addressed as Deva Deva, worshipful God of all the demigods. And even if you may know him as the origin of all the demigods, he may not know him as the supreme proprietor of everything. Therefore, he is addressed as Jagatpati. So the truth about Krishna is established in this verse, by Arjuna. This is in the Bhagavad Gita. So we should follow in Arjuna's footsteps, become humble, which is the first item of learning, and then we can actually understand Krishna. So talking about wonders, even in this planet, as we see, it's described in the 10th canto, all the different wonders in this material world. And there's beauty, and even material in nature, we accept, 7 wonders of the world. And most of them, you can see, are like man-made things. It's a wonder. We want to get credit for something that's wonderful. But look at nature. It's very beautiful. This is what is it called? The Yasomati. Keep forgetting how to pronounce that. Yasomati, the natural wonderful forest in California. Very beautiful nature. This represents Krishna. But here in the material world, the wonderful opulences that we experience, we see and we're reminded every time that they're temporary. And it's proven here, as we can just see recently in the news, that this Yosemite Valley is ablaze. It's actually burning right now. And that lake that we saw there, on both sides of the lake was burned, practically. And this is actually a photo from that Yosemite forest there. So you can see a beautiful scenery. We have campgrounds, just like the frog was going through and seeing all these beautiful trees and wonderful things, these huge lakes and oceans. It's very amazing. But still, this material manifestation is Krishna's inferior energy. It's a place where we're not of, because this is what happens. It's all temporary. This is some more photos from the actual scenes being burned down in Yosemite Valley, which is one of the wonders of the world. And look at this wonder, Krishna's wonder here. This is an aerial view from space, actually from an Italian scientist who circulates the globe, and this is the Yosemite Valley burning. This is his quote that he said, "California fire, sometimes it's not beauty that takes our breath away. But Krishna has a vicious form too. This is part of Krishna's opulence, his wonder, which we're reminded of. And here he displays it in this material world to show us that this is not really our home. This is not where we belong. We belong even in a more wonderful place, not here. And this is a blazing fire of material existence. It's the samsara, the cycle of repeated birth and death, which we're constantly being burned. And we're reminded of, just in the news today, of this. But if we just depend on Krishna, Krishna is very wonderful. He can just inhale the blazing fire of this material existence, just as he came here on this planet to display his wonderful activities amongst all his friends. Just see Krishna. Who can imagine that? Anything is possible with Krishna. Look at that. Just if Krishna was here now, he could just go up to the Yosemite Valley and just inhale all of those flames. Now they're using huge airplanes trying to drop all these fire retardant chemicals and try to put it out. But it's useless. Only until they experience Krishna, even in his natural form. Krishna doesn't have to come personally. He can just send a cloud. and just simply put out that fire in, a few minutes. That's another form of Krishna's power. This water, these clouds, sometimes they cause devastation. And Krishna also showed how he can protect his devotees in that way. We see in the Krishna book, the wonderful Krishna is described. There's a whole chapter about wonderful Krishna and all his pastimes. And here we see how Lord Indra became offended, or he was not sure, and was testing Krishna. Who's this little boy stopping my sacrifice? I'll show those people. And then he sends this Samvartaka cloud, which is used to destroy the world at the end of time, at the end of the millenniums, to try to destroy this little village of Vrindavan. And what does Krishna do? He just simply picks up a mountain. This is a huge mountain at that time. Nowadays it's been shrinking a mustard seed every year for the last, I don't know how many thousands of years, millions of years. So he lifted this huge mountain with the little pinky finger of his left hand. And he held it for 7 days. Can you imagine that? And look at all the cowherd men and the cowherd boys and gopis and everybody, the cows, they're all just amazed and just enjoying the bliss of Krishna, just holding that up. Can you imagine that? So beautiful. This is Krishna. And this is from the 10th canto, where Sukadeva Goswami said, the cowherd men were astonished when they saw Krishna's activities, such as lifting Govardhan Hill. Unable to understand this transcendental potency, they approached Nanda Maharaj and spoke as follows. So they approached Krishna's father, and they're trying to understand. And here in the purport, Srila Vishnava Chakravarti Thakur explains this verse. Here, during Lord Krishna's pastime of lifting Sri Govardhan Hill, the cowherd men simply enjoy the spiritual bliss of the Lord's activities without analyzing them. But afterwards, when they had returned to their homes, perplexity arose in their hearts. Thus they thought, now we have directly seen Chau Krishna lifting Govardhan Hill, and we remember how he killed Putana and other demons, extinguished the forest fire, and so on. At the time, we thought that these extraordinary acts occurred because of a benediction from the brāhmaṇas, or because of Nanda Maharaj's great fortune, or that perhaps this boy has achieved the mercy of Lord Narayan and was thus empowered by him. And then they go on to inquire. But all these presumptions are false, because an ordinary 7-year-old boy could never hold up the king of mountains for 7 whole days. Krishna is not a human being. He must be the Supreme Lord himself. But on the other hand, Chau Krishna loves it when we coddle him, and he becomes morose when we, his uncles and well-wishers, simply worldly cowherd men, do not give him attention. He appears to be very hungry and thirsty. He steals yogurt and milk, sometimes plays tricks, tells lies, chatters childishly, and tends to the calves. If he's actually the Supreme Lord, why would he do these things? Don't they indicate that he's an ordinary human child? We're totally unable to establish the truth of his identity. Therefore, let us go and inquire from the highly intelligent King of Vraja, Nanda Maharaj, and he shall free us from our doubts. So, according to Srila Vishnava Chakravarti Thakur, the cowherd men thus made up their minds, and then they entered the great hall of Nanda Maharaj, and they inquired. So, this is the answer. I mean, this is one, I think this is from the purport. They're actually quoting from the Acharyas again here, and then how he kind of summarizes here what he said. And he was actually repeats what he heard from the astrologer Gargamuni. And Gargamuni explained to them, who this boy is when they did the astrological reading. So this is what Gargamuni is saying. He says, your worshipful deity Narayan is so pleased with you that he has sent you a son almost equal to him in qualifications. Therefore, you may designate your son with a similar name, such as Mukunda or Madhusudana. But you must always remember that whenever you want to do something very good, there will be many hindrances. Therefore, you should raise and protect this child with great care. If you can protect this child very cautiously as Narayan always protects you, the child will be as good as Narayan. So Gargamuni indicated that although the child was exaltedly qualified like Narayan, he would enjoy more than Narayan as Rasa Vihari, the central enjoyer of the Rasa dance. And then Prabhupada refers to the Brahma Samhita about all the Lakshmis and gopis that surround Krishna, many millions and hundreds of thousands of gopis serve Krishna. So this is Krishna. He comes to display himself acting like a little helpless boy, kid, but yet he's doing such superhuman activities, swallowing forest fires, lifting huge mountains. And you can imagine, it's just bewildering. The Brahmins are trying to grasp Krishna with their minds, but they can't understand Krishna. How could this be? It's just beyond our limited conception. So this is Krishna. So these wonderful pastimes of Krishna are so purifying. And instead of being a frog in the well, now that the frog is out, so when the torrential rains come, the frogs come out of the mountain caves and they begin to chant, like brahmacharis who chant the Vedic hymns by the order of the spiritual master. So see, once we're freed, we have this conception, at least we have a little conception of what the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his wonderful activities are, then we should go out. On hearing these sounds of torrential rains, that we should come out like the frogs and begin to croak, but not croak like frogs, but actually to chant the Vedic hymns by the order of the spiritual master. And in the purport to this, in the light of the Bhagavad, Prabhupada writes very nicely that, in this age of godless civilization, the sages of world-recognized religious sects who believe in God must come out of their secluded places and preach the science of God, the supreme will, to the people in general. Prabhupada calls everyone, Hindus, Muslims, Christians, and the members of other sects that have convinced faith in the authority of God must not sit idly now and silently watch the rapid growth of a godless civilization. There is a supreme will of God, and no nation or society can live in peace and prosperity without acceptance of this vital truth. The warning is already there, and responsible leaders of religious sects must meet together and form a common platform of a league of devotees of the Lord. There is no need for self-realized souls to live in a secluded place. Perfect self-realized souls engaged in the service of the Lord are unafraid of Maya, just as law-abiding citizens of a state never fear the police. Such fearless devotees of God always speak scientifically about the existence of God, even at the risk of death. Such devotees of God feel compassion for the mass of people who have completely forgotten the Supreme Lord and who engage in the false pursuit of happiness that ends in the sense pleasures enjoyed by the hogs and dogs. So this is a whole analogy of this water and the clouds, how the clouds come and it's a very beautiful scenery and it waters the ground, and the ground which is parched and almost dead, that it now becomes full of life and full of fruit and full of activity, and the animals and the insects all become fat and hearty and beautiful. And Prabhupada explains this as just like the seasonal changes that we experience in the mature world. This is all temporary. It's a temporary show, that we shouldn't be so attracted to it, because we'll see. There's another image which I happen to not put on here, is of how it's all parched and dry, and it's all the tadpoles in the water are just they dry up when the water dries up, and everything's finished. So this is the mature world, which we shouldn't become so attached to. It's temporary. So this is real charity, is to give this knowledge, and Prabhupada talks about that. Charity referred to the word as dhanam. It's actually to reward fearlessness and freedom to others. Get them free from the well, this materialistic conception. Not to give them some material means of temporary pleasure relief. Any material charitable arrangement will inevitably be crushed by the onward march of time. Thus only realization of one's eternal existence beyond the reach of time can make one fearless. And only freedom from material desire constitutes real freedom. For it enables one to escape the bondage of the laws of nature. Therefore, real charity is to help people revive their eternal spiritual consciousness. So that's what we're here for. And as Prabhupada called on all religious sects to come and give this message of God. Even in the Bible, it's described here in Isaiah. It says here, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." So you can see even here again, so many scriptures saying the wonderfulness of Krishna, that we cannot understand him by our ways, by our thoughts. And then this is a nice verse and purport from the Srimad Bhagavatam in the 11th canto. How within this world, whatever is perceived by the mind, speech, eyes, or other senses is actually Krishna alone, and it's nothing besides him. So we try to understand that. We have to try to understand that saying here in the verse. So here in the purport it says, "The Lord refutes the conception that he is a supreme God, far beyond and different from everything within this world. Modern agnostic philosophers preach that God created the world and then retired or went away. According to them, God has no tangible connection with this world, nor does he interfere in human affairs. Ultimately, they claim God is so great that he cannot be known. Therefore, no one should waste time trying to understand God." To refute such foolish ideas, the Lord here explains that since everything is an expansion of his potency, he is non-different from anything. Nothing can exist separately from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus everything shares in the Lord's nature, although some manifestations are superior and others inferior. So that's very interesting, how we can see Krishna is everywhere. And then we have to have a qualification to see Krishna, and we begin to see that in this chapter, wherein Kuti will give these wonderful prayers on how Krishna is, Muda Drisha, is not visible to the mudas, to the foolish observers, but that there's a qualification. And she mentions them, that one has to be a Paramahamsa. He's only interested in the nectar of the spirit, not the matter, just like the swan is only interested in the milk, not the water, when you mix it together. And that one must become a muni. He must become very thoughtful, and contemplate. Just like these brāhmaṇas, they were contemplating. They're very thoughtful about Krishna, trying to understand Krishna. They're very interested in Krishna, in knowing Krishna. And how she explains also how one has to become amalam, free from contamination. And the whole part of becoming free from contamination is this process that we're doing now, is to actually follow the process of Krishna consciousness so that we become free, become pious. Because as Prabhupada says here, that Krishna is ready to be understood by anyone. Mamhi partha vyapashritya yepi shuhu. Simply, we have to follow the path, how to appreciate Krishna, how to understand Krishna, how to see Krishna, how to talk with him, how to walk with him. These things are there. That is called Bhakti Yoga, where you learn the science of Bhakti Yoga that we have mentioned. Nectar devotion, the perfect science of Bhakti Yoga. So if one's interested in seeing Krishna, there is no hindrance, there is no block. Anyone. Shriyo Vaishyas Tata Sudras Te Piyanti Param Gatim. So just like the frog, he may refuse, or he may become puffed up and try to understand Krishna in his own way, and then he'll just burst and explode. But if by the mercy of someone, like the little sparrow, someone, and he's eager to learn and find out, then, he may be revealed. He may be shown, that there is more, that you can actually understand Krishna. But that's by the mercy of a devotee. And here, this is the qualities of a devotee that describe it. You don't have to read them all, but just to give you an idea, I just put them here. This whole verse on top is just all the qualities of a saintly person. And you could just pick out a few as you look at, as you just glance on there. That, he's conquered over the 6 material qualities, hunger, thirst, lamentation. He's expert in reviving Krishna consciousness in others. He never cheats anyone. He's a well-wishing friend of all. But just to give you an idea. But anyway, in the bottom part here, these are verses 29 to 31. There's quite a few verses here. There's actually 29 to 32, I think. Describes the 28 qualities of a saintly person. And verse 32 explains the highest perfection of life. According to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the 17th quality, Mats Sharana, or taking complete shelter of Lord Krishna, is the most important. And the other 27 qualities automatically appear in one who has become a pure devotee of the Lord, as stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Quotes the verse. So these are the 20 qualities they described. And it goes on, there's more. He breaks down every quality in the purport. You might want to go to that verse. It's described here, verse 29, 31 of the 11th canto. I can't forget the chapter now. But in the purport, he describes each one very nicely. So it's very nice to understand the qualities that we are to develop. We become amalam, free from all this dirt. And once we clean out the dirt, all these qualities are actually there. We don't have to, endeavor separately for them. But we just completely take shelter of hearing about Krishna, from the pure devotees, then we can actually attain that state. And here, again, it's explaining here in the Upandesamrita that a devotee who has not yet developed the good qualities mentioned above, but is nevertheless sincerely endeavoring for Krishna consciousness, should receive the mercy of superior Vaishnavas. One should not necessarily accept intimate association with such an aspirant to pure devotional service, but one should be confident that by chanting the holy names of Krishna, such a person will eventually attain all perfection. One can imagine the beauty of a society filled with saintly persons. Now, can you imagine that? As described in these verses, the wonderful Krishna-conscious qualities mentioned above are the basis of a peaceful and prosperous society. And if everyone takes to the loving service of Lord Krishna, then certainly the present atmosphere of fear, violence, lust, greed, and insanity can be replaced by the celestial situation in which all the leaders and citizens will be happy. The essential point here is mat sarana, one should take full shelter of Lord Krishna, and mam bhajeta, one should worship the Lord through the authorized process. In this way, the entire world can become satama, or most perfect. So here, these are very wonderful qualities as described here. These are wonderful Krishna-conscious qualities. So we can also become wonderful, just as Krishna is wonderful. We can obtain all these wonderful qualities that Krishna has. And this is the process on how to do that. And in this chapter, it'll be revealed more by Kunti Devi. So here, again, look at this bird compared to the sparrow there. So we have to have the determination of the sparrow as described in the Bhagavad Gita, determined to follow the process of Krishna consciousness. And Krishna will notice this determination, even though we may not be able to empty the ocean of this material world. It's like the sparrow trying to empty the ocean to find its eggs that the ocean swallowed up. But if we're determined and sincere, then Krishna will send his representative. And look at the representative, Garuda. That's actually one of Krishna's opulences. That's Krishna described in the 10th canto, how he's manifest in the form of his devotee here. Garuda, who carries Vishnu. Garuda is the one who actually carried the Mandara mountain on his back, who all the demons and demigods couldn't even lift to churn the ocean of nectar. So there's Garuda. She'll help us. Or he'll help us. I guess it's a he. So there, Garuda taking the charge. There's a sparrow sitting there, and look, Garuda's warning the ocean. If you don't give it up, then I will empty you myself, which he can, without a doubt. So here we are. We just take shelter. We want to be lifted out of our well. We want to be lifted out of this material existence, the ocean of birth and death, the ocean of suffering and misery. And then Krishna will lift us out, take us beyond the clouds of this material world, which is just a temporary show, and take us to the real light, to the wonderful atmosphere of where Krishna lives, his wonderful abode. There's so much wonder there we can't imagine. So anyway, this is the process. And I just wanted to give a little idea on how Krishna is wonderful and Krishna's creations are wonderful. But we have to decide, do we want to take shelter of his wonderful material energy or the wonderful spiritual energy? So let's all become like swans. Or if not, you could just remain a frog, but be willing to get out of the well and be lifted up by a little sparrow or a huge Garuda. and taken. And then we will be transformed into swans and paramahamsas and great devotees of Krishna. So this is the kiss of Krishna's hand. It's like the kiss the frog becomes a prince. So the touch of Krishna, Krishna's hand is not different than any other part of his body. So we're like frogs in the material world, just waiting for that kiss of Krishna. So Krishna's kiss is there. In the Bhagavatam, it's described that these words are non-different than Krishna. They come from Krishna's mouth. And this is how Krishna empowers his devotees. There's one section I remember reading where Krishna actually, when Krishna kisses the gopis, that Krishna leaves the nectar in their mouth, and then from that nectar they were able to learn all the arts and the musical sciences and all the wonderful things. Krishna, you're automatically given these things. So this is the amazing power of Krishna. We can't imagine. So this is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So maybe we can open it up for some questions, comments, realizations, if I didn't get cut off. Hopefully you can still hear me.
Not at all. Just 1 second.
So this is...
Now I've unmuted everybody.
Ascharya. Krishna is wonderful.
Okay. So, Prabhu, anyone would like to contribute anything? Questions, comments, additions?
Corrections? Yeah, so you're able to see everything on the display? The presentation okay?
Beautiful presentation.
Okay.
That was awesome, Prabhu. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Who's this? Thank you.
Jay.
Oh, Haribol, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Haribol.
Okay, so we have a lot of nectar to look forward to coming up with the teachings of Queen Kunti. She's going to show us how it is to become qualified to see Krishna. And it's very wonderful prayers that we're going to be listening to. So just want to say that I'm very glad to be back with your association. And usually I don't have time. The timing difference are different. So I've been actually listening to some of the recordings after the fact. And it's very wonderful. I could see how, there's so many, we got so many Shiksha Gurus in our movement. And I've been listening and absorbing and, getting transformed from all the classes here over Skype and meeting, whatever this meeting thing is, start meeting. So yeah, I just want to thank you all very much. All glories to your services.
Okay. Anybody?
Thank you.
Anybody?
Kodachi, it's kind of amazing. I was amazed. You were reading us about the qualities of a saint. And just yesterday I was requested by a group of professors to speak today at the university on following the saints.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, boy, I got to bone up. And what is it? How do we define a saint? What is a saint? That'll be the first important point to make, is what is a saint? Because in this world, so many people are considered saints that by the absolute standard, by the standard of Shastra, are not in fact saintly. They may have many good, pious material qualities influenced by the mode of goodness, but not really by the absolute standard saints. And it was nice that you read that. It was very inspiring. I'm going to go back and read that. I don't have a lot of time. I'm going to have enough time to go read over what Arrow's describing the saint, and then I've got to take off for the university. But
28 qualities.
I was thinking that the one that jumped out at me that I was thinking to quote was in the Brahma Samhita, where the famous verse, which many of us know, Prem Anjana Charita Bhakti Valochanena Santak Sadaiva Hridayeshu Valokiyanti Yang Shaima Sundara Chinta Ganasvarupam Govindam Aripurusham Tamaham Vajami. Well, it mentions saint. This word Santak Sadaiva. Santak is saint, or devotee. Santak means devotee.
Yeah.
And I would surmise that the word saint has come from this word santak, meaning devotee.
Yes.
So saint is a devotee. If one is not a devotee, he is not a saint.
That's what real Santa Claus is. We're real Santa Claus.
I've heard that, and I've also, I'm a little risky to throw that into a bunch of professors that's where Santa Claus came from. But I think, I think there's merit to that. At giving a Sunday feast talk at the temple, not a Sunday feast or a Christmas talk, I will mention that I think that there must be some connection between Santa and Santa.
Well, that should be what I was mentioning here about what real charity is. See, charity is referred to dynamis, toward fearlessness and freedom, not just to give material presents and junk, But that's the real Santa, the real saints. They give this charity.
And how is it that they're possible to give it? Because Brahma describes that Santak Sadaiva Hridayeshu Valokayanti, that at every moment he's seeing Krishna within his heart and within the heart of all beings. I mean, that's his vision. He sees Krishna everywhere. And his purpose, which we saw in following the saints, so I want to tie this all in, that Prabhupada and her whole line, is to reunite the soul and the super soul within everyone's heart, where the soul has forgotten or disconnected from super soul. And it was, I was doing a wedding the other day, and it's not unusual that the bride and groom will write vows for one another. So the bride,
they write vows?
They write their own wedding vows.
Yeah.
So in the vows, the bride wrote something that really touched me. Now, of course, she was seeing it from a completely different perspective from where devotees would see. But to me, it was just like profound that people are that she was thinking this way. She said, as part of her vows, she said, "In finding you, I have found the other half of my soul." And I was thinking, wow, how profound is that for a devotee? It's like when we find Krishna, we really find that soulmate, that other half of our soul. And that is the root of our suffering. It doesn't matter, Narayana Paraksavi Nakutashana Vidyate Svarga Apavarganarkeshu Apitolyartha Darshanam. A devotee, it doesn't matter whether he's in hell, whether he's in heaven, no matter what state, it doesn't matter, because he's reunited with his real soul. He's reunited with Krishna. And that's the purpose of the saint. That's the desire of the saint, is to reunite.
Yeah.
Every living being who's suffering terribly in this world, not because the material world's a material world, he's suffering because he's disconnected from Krishna. And once we're reconnected to Krishna, then everything is resolved, and we're once again situated in our...
You go to third chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the famous verse, Yagyashistashino Shanto.
Shanto Muchante Sarvakilvashai.
Yeah. And so that you have a lot to preach from if you're going to talk about, because definitely Santa comes from saint comes from Santa. I mean, there's no question. So, that's a given. You don't have to, speculate. It's like, Latin comes from Sanskrit. There's no question, But I had this anecdotal realization, or not real. I had the realization in 1968 because Vishnu John first had the realization. He was giving a Sunday lecture in Frederick Street, and I used to live a couple blocks up, and I was sometimes go to the Sunday feast. And so Vishnu John had just joined that week or something, and he said he was coming to the temple, and then finally he said, "I realized I'm living." He had that nice voice. He said, "I'm living among saints." He said he realized I'm living among saints. And I remember that I thought, saints? Because you always thought saint means some guy up on a cross who gets his head cut off, Catholic. You don't really associate it with someone who's saintly, just that someone is a martyr. But basically, they have this kind of definition of a saint is someone who just got killed by, demons or something. But you don't really think of them having saint. But then when he said it, he had the realization, but he was able to transfer it to at least to me, and then when I saw him 3 years later, he joined the Roadshow in 1971. And I hadn't seen him since then, and I hadn't joined then before. So then I told him, I remember you said this, you said, and then I told him the whole thing, and then immediately first thing he said was, "Yes, I still say that. I'm living among saints." And he said, it was so classic.
That's cool.
Nice.
There's a recent story of there was a yoga teacher who got addicted to what he called monk food. So he always would have this desire to always eat something spiritual. So he we had this Maha room every day, kind of separate from the Govinda. So he'd go there every day, and that's all he would eat was monk food. And that's what he called it. He loved monk food. So after a while, monk food. Yeah, it's prasadam.
He was eating prasadam.
Yeah. So he didn't know what prasadam was. So he called it monk food. But then eventually it became so purified that, he became a devotee, initiated devotee. Became a bhakti yogi instead of an impersonalist yogi.
He went from monkey to monk.
Yeah. That's true. By the monk food. Yeah, that's cool. Jai.
Yeah, and
anyway.
Like there's, Krishna Bhakta, Ashanta. You could bring in all kinds of verses. You could, Bhukti, Mukti, Siddhi, Kami, Sakala, Ashanta, Krishna Bhakta, Niskama, Sakala. He's Santa. Only the Bhakta is Santa, peaceful. Prashanta manasam hyenam yoginam sukham uttamam. This word prashanta also is like a extension of the word saint. Peaceful means peaceful. Shanti. I mean, this is one of those words you can really preach about because, I mean, people know this word shanti now. Like yoga used to be kind of like nobody knew. Now everybody knows what yoga is. Everybody knows guru, the pandit. They use these words all the time. Of course, they screw them around, but this word shanti could be almost run as a runner-up popular Sanskrit word.
That's true. That's good. Yeah.
And you could use
Definitely.
that word.
Yeah, I like that.
Shanti, peaceful. So a saint, the first thing they can understand is peaceful. Why is he peaceful? Then you have like 25, 30 verses you can immediately quote from the Bhagavad Gita.
Om Shanti, Shanti,
nice, yeah.
Shanti, Om.
But it's also interesting that in another bona fide religions like Christianity, saints would develop almost the same qualities. So where it comes from Krishna, of course.
Yeah. So therefore, all the sages of world-recognized religious sects must come out of their secluded places, must break out of their box, out of their wells.
So Haribol Prabhu, I have a question. This is Mahesh. My question is, okay, so these will be the traits of how we can recognize a saintly person or a saint. My question is, then how does one become a saint?
Stay tuned. Stay tuned. Yeah. You're associating with the Mahajans, and Queen Kunti is probably on the level of Mahajan, I'm sure. But yeah, I mean, she's going to enlighten us. We could give a whole class about that. But I kind of mentioned a little bit about it here, where we have to associate with the devotees, hear and chant, become purified, be interested, like that. So this just give you a little taste from this class today. But yeah, there goes on. There's a lot more. And Kunti Devi gives some really practical advice. First of all, she's very humble. She's saying that she's less intelligent, very humble, very nice. And then she approaches Krishna and says, you're to be understood by Paramahamsas, Munis, people free from sinful activities. Who am I? I'm just a woman. So that humility first is the first thing.
In a conversation between Kapila Devi and Devahuti, the Shantarupe is used. You might want to, there's lots of places, if you do a search in the database, you'll have this Shanta, this one verse, Shantarupe. I'm trying to think of the verse. Can't think of it immediately, but so she's being addressed as also Shantarupe. I think Kapila is talking to his mother.
Oh, yeah.
Devahuti.
Pushkarji, my phone rang about 2 minutes ago when you were making an important point, and it cut me off, and I came right back, and you were talking about Shanti. Peace, is that also connected with the word
Shanti? Yes, Shanta. Shanta means that he's peaceful. Prashanta manasam hyenam yoginam sukham uttamam. In the 6th chapter of the Gita, Prashanta is an extension of the word Shanta. And one who's peaceful, his mind is controlled. So then all those qualities come in Bhagavad Gita, and you can, 26 qualities from the CC or from the blood and the cano actually come.
So it's all come from the same root? From the same root from where Santa? Interesting.
Prakrishta Rupena Shanta. When something's emphasized more, then it has a pra. Probably just to
right.
That Sanskrit rule for Prakrishta Rupena, that when the prefix is pra, it increases it. It has it emphasizes.
Satang prasangang mamavirya sangvido.
Yeah. What is that? Yeah.
Satang prasangang mamavirya sangvido.
Yeah.
Prasanga, the best association.
Yeah, so
but that doesn't have Shanta. If you're looking for the word Shanta, then you'll Jitatmana Prashantasya, that's 6, Jitatmana Prashantasya, what is it, Paramatma Samahitaha. When one becomes peaceful, then he can approach the super soul. One whose mind is controlled, has conquered his senses, Jitatmana Prashantasya. Evam prasana manaso bhagavad bhakti yogataha bhagavad tattva vijnana mukta sangha shajayate. Like from the first canto, you can go unlimited with that topic. I mean, so that's a no end topic.
Yeah, that's great. No, I'm all fired up.
The wonder of Krishna.
Pushkar should come with me. We'll give him a double barrel. Fly over here and join me.
You guys will blow him out of the well. Blow him out of the water.
Who is that guy we used to go to on the west? He had in that small college, and
this is University of Hawaii. Professor Balok.
That's another thing. Yeah.
Did you know him?
That's good. No, we used to go to one professor who had in that small school over near Kaneohe, or I forget.
Well, Windward Community College.
Windward, yeah, that guy. Every semester we'd go there and get
that's Dr. Yeah, I speak at Dr. Walenta, an old guy.
Right,
yeah, I speak at his class every semester.
He wasn't that old then. It's 26 years ago. He wasn't that old.
We weren't that old then.
Jai, anyway, there's a devotee that asked a question about, how do you find out, to become a saintly person. So that's the first start, is that you're inquiring, and that's one of the qualifications, that you have to be eager and you have to be interested. So there's unlimited resources from the devotees and Prabhupada's books. And if you have the database, just do some searching that way.
How does iron become like fire? You simply put it in the fire, it becomes like iron.
Yeah.
We put ourselves in the association of the saints and actually take that association. Of course, now we know what it means to really associate, to actually follow. But we put ourselves in the association, absorb ourselves in all the instructions Prabhupada gave us. And he said that is the greatest mystic power. He turns hippies into happies. We become saintly by that association, just like going right into the fire.
Yeah, hippies into happies, punks into monks.
I think you'll find that word in the 5th canto and different places. What's that verse? It's a Tamil bottom. Goes from the first line of that.
Ahodvaram. What is it? Tamodvaram. Yeah. Mahatsevan dvaram ahorve mukte stamodvaram yoshitan sangi sangam. That's the verse. Mahatsevan dvaram.
The last 2 lines.
Tamodvaram yoshitan sangi sangam.
Yeah,
you probably just have to bless me with your potency to memorize verses. Someday I'll memorize some.
Prabhu.
Well, that's a famous Mahatsevan Dvaram, the door. Mahatsevan Dvaram Aharvi Muktes, the door to liberation opens by associating with the saintly persons. Tamo Dvaram Yoshitan Sangi Sangam, but the door to the most hellish conditions of life open with Yoshitan, those that are attached to sex life and associating with women.
Yeah.
The last two.
Tamodvaram Yoshitan Sangi Sangam.
Jai, that's awesome verse. Jai Prabhu, thank you for your association.
Thank you.
There's
Prabhu.
no more
Great
questions.
class.
I guess we could. Jai, thank you. great participation and great input. It's amazing. Krishna is so wonderful, and his devotees are so wonderful.
Oh,
Yeah.
Bless your Prabhupada.
thank you,
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, Ramananda Ji, for making this all happen.
Jai, all glory
Jai.
to Prabhupada.
Oh, blessed Prabhupada. Thank you.
Thank you, Gauda Ji. Thank you, everyone. Hari Bol. Thank you, Pushkar Ji.
Thank you.